Hello and welcome to another edition of Conservative Corner. We are a monthly talk show based here in the wonderful studios of New TV in Newton, Massachusetts. And we are a monthly TV show, as I mentioned to you, on cable access television. And we deal with more or less issues that are very insightful, very interesting, very pertinent to the community at large. But we do so from a different perspective in that, given the liberal politics, the liberal bias of the media in our state and to a great extent in our country, we deal with it from a general mainstream conservative perspective. We cover issues that others won't, especially in the liberal enclaves in our very liberal state. What the main issue that we're going to deal with tonight is something that is on a lot of people's minds, and it will be as time goes on with the rest of the country, in that we are a sanctuary state, we are a sanctuary city. Sanctuary state, sanctuary city. Massachusetts, Newton. There are at least a dozen sanctuary cities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Massachusetts is also a sanctuary state. There are about 8 sanctuary states around the country. Now, what does that mean? That simply means that we are more or less havens for illegal immigrants who are here in this country, who came here illegally. They broke the law, they overstayed their welcome, and in doing so, they broke the law. They came across the borders illegally, they overstayed their visas. They're not supposed to be here, and they're not supposed to be taking all the benefits that many of them do take. This was especially pertinent in the Biden administration, which let in over 20 million illegals across the border. And it's something that was quickly curtailed within the week of the Trump administration taking over. Now, this pertains to Newton, this pertains to Massachusetts. And as of right now, in November, the Trump administration has not aggressively pursued the sanctuary states, sanctuary cities around the country. Why? Because they're involved specifically in rounding up, deporting felony illegal immigrants, the worst of the worst. But what will happen is, very simply, in 2026, we've heard on good authority, they are going to get to the sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. And Newton is on a list. Newton is on a short list. Why? Because Newton is well known to the powers that be in Washington. It is. And with that being said, we have with us tonight a very important individual who's been working on this issue for a very long time. And that is our dear friend, Henry Barbaro. And Henry, could you please explain to the audience, and I thank you for being here, your title and what it means and what your organization is all about.
Okay. Again, my name's Henry Barbaro, and I'm the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Coalition for Immigration Reform. And we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, and that our focus is on Massachusetts and pushing back on proposed legislation and existing laws that encourage and reward illegal immigration. And we also promote good bills like E-Verify, which is designed to determine almost instantaneously if a prospective employee is authorized to work in the country, ferreting out people who have stolen identifications or social security numbers, that sort of thing. So that's generally what we do. And I wanted to mention, I don't want to steal Tom's thunder, but that there is, speaking of the devil, there is a hearing a week from tomorrow, November 25th, and there are 11 bills that are going to be heard, and they all have to do one way or another with sanctuary policies, either promoting them or pushing back against them. And for those who hear this broadcast on time, to sign up for testimony, you have to do that by Thursday, November 20th.
And the hearings are where?
It's at the State House, and it is going to be before the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. And it should be good. It's very important. and there's a movement afoot. Every legislative session, there seems to be what's known as the Safe Communities Act, which is really, an oxymoron, really. It's to disconnect and obstruct coordination between ICE and state and local law enforcement. And the theory being that illegal immigrants or the immigrant community would be more likely to approach police if they weren't in fear of ICE deporting them and so forth. But there's no evidence that actually it's counterintuitive. If you have a violent person, a dangerous person in your immigrant community, you want to get them out, and it's not safer to have them remain in your community. So I just wanted to talk a bit about Newton's welcoming city ordinance, but I wanted to get philosophical a bit at first. I wanted to ask the viewing audience, as well as hopefully the city councilors, a few philosophical questions. One is, do you differentiate between legal immigrants and illegal immigrants? That's one. Next one, there are four. Next one is, do you think illegal immigration is wrong and that it should be prohibited? Third one, do you think that the United States should have laws that regulate immigration? And the fourth one, do you believe that ICE, immigration control enforcement and control and customs, immigration and customs enforcement, do you believe that this ICE is an evil agency and that it should be abolished and not exist at all? Now, I ask this because in 2017, when the Welcoming City Ordinance was passed, I think they passed it in such a way that it's almost like you know the answers to these questions. First of all, who does the Welcoming City Ordinance welcome? Well, it welcomes illegal migrants, and specifically those who have committed crimes. So that's who the ordinance is welcoming. Secondly, there's an open borders perspective to it. And so even though these people have not been invited, that really, hey, if anyone comes to the United States and they want to live here, well, then they can. And if they take jobs or depress wages of Americans, well, then that's okay. So that's sort of the backdrop of the Welcoming City Ordinance. And then the third point is, the last point, is that no other federal agency is identified in this ordinance. Not the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, only ICE. So that pertains to that question, do you think that ICE is intrinsically evil? And it would appear that the people who passed this ordinance have targeted ICE as an agency that should not be worked with or coordinated or communicated with at all. So, I have another point here, and that is in the ordinance, there's a section in there that there's discipline to it. So in other words, the police, law enforcement, this is their sworn duty, is to protect public safety. Yet there is a provision in the Welcoming City Ordinance that if someone violates this ordinance, then they're subject to discipline. It has quite a chilling effect, I think. So if a police officer were to communicate with an ICE officer, then they would be vulnerable to discipline. And I think that gives it a heavy-handed approach to what they're trying to accomplish. Now, this pertains back, I want to mention this too, and there may be confusion about this. In 1996, there was a federal law passed under the Clinton administration, and what that law said is that, and says, it's still in effect, is that if you're in the United States illegally and you commit a crime, then you are deportable. I mean, there's a lot of detail around that, but essentially that's it. So this is what ICE is trying to do today. They've identified not just people who are in America illegally, but people have committed crimes, and they're trying to enforce this 1996 law, and those are the ones they're targeting, and they are deportable, as well as the people who are subject to a removal order. Now, you know, we have this asylum process, and it has been richly abused, but people have gone through, prospective immigrants, gone through these asylum proceedings, and you know, something like 85 of their claims are denied, 85%. And so once they're denied, they're issued a removal order, but they don't leave. And so this is a crime, and these are the types of people, or the people that are targeted by ICE. They have not left voluntarily like they should, and so they are seeking them out and enforcing this 1996 law and the removal order, which is the due process that America provides to prospective immigrants. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Okay, a last point, then I'll let Tom step in. In 2017, there was case law in Massachusetts. It was known as the Lund decision. Lund versus the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the court said that, it's kind of a fine distinction here, is that a community, a jail, a court system, what have you, cannot hold illegal immigrants based on just that they are illegal immigrants. Okay, so once they have served their time in jail for a crime, they couldn't be held longer because they were not in this country legally, and that ICE would at some point pick them up and deport them. They had, you know, it's just to totally divorce the two. So that's the Lund decision. And what the Newton welcoming city ordinance does is it ramps it up just a bit and says, what ICE really needs is a couple of days of notice so they can come and pick up the illegal migrant when they're let out of jail, and then take custody and deport them. It's very efficient, it's very fair. What the welcoming city ordinance says is that the police cannot give notice to ICE and let them know when a criminal is being released from incarceration. So there's that disconnect there, and it's obstructing justice, and it's obstructing this 1996 law, which says that if you commit a crime, you know, relatively serious crime, then you are deportable. That you think about it, immigration is all about strengthening our country. It's about improving society and all that sort of thing. It's not to have people come into our country and then prey upon our citizens. So once you do that, then you are deportable. So,
You know, Henry.
thank you.
There's a lot of issues here, but the main issue is in city. Excuse me. In very liberal Democrat cities such as Newton, they try to more or less cloak what they're really up to, and that is they don't call Newton a sanctuary city, they call it a welcoming city. Mm-hmm. And they try to make it sound as innocuous as possible. But essentially what they've said is that unless there's an illegal immigrant within the boundaries of Newton who has a felony warrant, then they will instruct the police to stay away from them. In other words, if somebody is I don't want to say just an illegal immigrant, but just an illegal immigrant who is here illegally, the police are not supposed to arrest them, detain them, or even inform ICE that they're here. But the mere fact that they're here illegally means that they broke federal law and entered the country illegally. Yeah. And people will say, well, what's the harm in having them in places like Newton in very wealthy suburbs? Well, after all, they take care of the jobs that Newtonians don't necessarily want, such as landscaping, construction work, things of that nature. And that's false to a great extent. And I'll give you a quick example. In my neighborhood, there are some elderly landscapers. They're in their 60s now. And they're born and bred here, went through the Newton Public Schools, but their business is more or less at a standstill. They're going out of business. Why? Because the illegal immigrants have pushed them out of business. Not just them, but if you look around the city and you see
Well, they drive down wages.
they drive down
And
wages.
a lot of times they skirt around like insurance requirements and
Yes, they
things
do.
like that.
Not only that, but if you look around the city and you see various construction projects, and there's usually one individual among, say, 5 that will speak some English, that will be able to communicate with whomever is there. But still, these individuals, and I'm not saying they're all illegals, but I'm saying that there are a portion of them that there are. We don't know to what extent because they've never really been investigated, certainly not by the police, who refuse to enforce, whose hands are tied to enforce federal law. But still, they drive down union wages. And so my question is, where are the unions in the construction industry? And where are they? Why haven't they taken a more assertive role in trying to alleviate or at least combat or at least make notice of so many illegals who are in the construction business? Now, as of now, because there are so many criminal aliens with felony records, they need to be dealt with first, and they are being dealt with. How long that will take is anybody's guess. But what will happen eventually is that the federal government will get to those who are here illegally without committing felonies, and they will be deported. How many of those are here? We don't know. Probably the accepted figure is around 20 million, and that's in a 4-year period throughout the Biden administration. Now, when Newton and other cities became sanctuary cities in the first year of the Trump administration, 2017, yes, illegal immigration was a problem, but it wasn't a crisis like it is today, because you had the Trump administration, which didn't let anyone into the state, or rather into the country, and the borders were somewhat porous, but they weren't like they became under the Biden administration. But under the 4 years of the Biden administration, it's become a crisis. Now, specific to our Commonwealth of Massachusetts, when Charlie Baker was governor under the Biden administration, he was still governor for 2 years while Biden was came into office. You would not see illegals coming into the state on buses, on planes, snuck in here in the middle of the night, flown into Hanscom, kept in airport terminals like they did at Logan, then put up in motels. Tens of thousands of them came in after Baker left office and the current governor, Maura Healey, took over. And that's in a short period of time.
It was like 55,000.
Yes, that's in a short period of time. That's in a 2-year period. But nevertheless, they're here, they're very expensive, and from what I understand, they cost the state about $1 billion.
A year.
A year. And that's money that could be used elsewhere to put to good use across the 350 plus cities and towns across the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
But it's not, because it's dealing with the illegal immigrants. But nevertheless, as I alluded to before, that the Trump administration is going to get to the idea of, is going to get to those states like California, like Vermont, like Massachusetts, Illinois, all blue states, by the way, who have declared themselves sanctuary states, yeah. And by default, the sanctuary cities within those sanctuary states. And it's about time that they did. And again, those who say, well, who feel comfortable and complacent by adhering to the sanctuary states that they run, better be put on notice. And as an example, on Veterans Day, at the Veterans Day event in Newton, I had a conversation with 2 city councils, and I alerted them to this, and I told them that what's going to happen is you had better change your sanctuary city policy in the city council in Newton, because if you don't, the Trump administration is going to come down hard on Newton. And so they said, well, will they send in a request that for us to stop us, our welcoming city, as they said? I said, no, it won't be a request, it will be a demand. And, but specifically what will happen is the Trump administration, when they say they're going to clamp down on sanctuary states, they mean it. And Massachusetts will be targeted. And what could that mean? That could mean the withholding of all federal funds to the state. And people say, well, it's tens of billions of dollars. That's impossible. No, it's not impossible. They will do it. They will do it. So be put on notice, be leery of the fact that this is coming, and you better be proactive and dispense with this sanctuary state, welcoming city nonsense, or it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, and it will.
All right, let me add another couple of things, and thank you for that. Good observations. So I wanted to, we've been talking about kind of the stick of enforcement and so forth, but then there's a softer way to go about this, and that is what I mentioned before, E-Verify. And, what is really bringing migrants from all over the world to America and to Massachusetts are the jobs magnet, okay? And what's insidious about this is that the unscrupulous employers who employ illegal labor against the law, but they do it, they have a competitive advantage over the responsible law-abiding employer who makes sure that he hires only, authorized workers, legal immigrants and American citizens. So E-Verify is a great way to lower this jobs magnet. And so people would think, prospective migrants would think, oh, geez, I don't know if I'm going to get a job if this state, like let's say Massachusetts, has this electronic system for identification. And this is a bill that's at the State House right now, and it's probably going to be tabled for further study, but it should be promoted vigorously. And I also want to mention too, what we see on TV all the time, left, right, whatever. You see all the commotion, all the rioting to protect migrants from being deported, and ICE and all that. It's a very traumatic, very dramatic. This could be really reduced if, in a very direct way, these sanctuary jurisdictions are worsening this environment. If they would notify and coordinate with ICE to come to the jails and to the courthouses, this would be very limited. It would be a very seamless transition that ICE would take these people and put them in deportation proceedings. But instead, the courts and the jails do not coordinate with ICE, and they release them into these convicted criminals into the communities. This is not a safe way to go about it. It's not safe for the migrants. It's not safe for the public. It's not safe for the ICE officers to now go into the communities and find these people and then put them in the handcuffs and all the scene you see. So I wanted to mention that.
Henry, there's the risk to the population, as you alluded to, and that is, and frequently we see, usually on Fox News, where an illegal will kill somebody in a drunk driving incident, or just attack and rape somebody or murder somebody, and what the liberal response to that is, well, these crimes happen all the time around the country.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, we understand that. But the fact of the matter is, if that illegal immigrant had not been here, the victim of their crime would have been spared.
That's right.
And, the mere fact that they're here committing these crimes, and we're certainly not saying all of them commit felonies.
No.
But if they were not here, the felony wouldn't have happened, and the person who they committed the crime against would be alive or would be unharmed. Quick example, a lady whom I've had on the show before a while ago, Maureen Maloney, whose son was killed by an illegal alien who was drunk driving, and he ran him over, and he kept driving, and he killed him.
Yeah, he was on a motorcycle.
Yeah, he was on a motorcycle, Maureen Maloney's son. And that family has to live with that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And again, this is a crime that shouldn't have happened. Why? Because the perpetrator shouldn't have been in this country.
Yep.
Had he not been in this country, then her son Matthew would be alive today. And there are countless stories like this across the country.
Yeah,
and they're tragic. I mean, honestly, we have enough crime like that in the country. And we don't have to import it. We don't have
That's
to
right.
keep people here and import it for it to continue. We know that it happens, but the fact is this was preventable.
Yeah.
It's preventable.
There's that argument where, immigrants commit crime at a lower percentage than native-born citizens, and that's really not the point. The point is what Tom was saying, that, if they were properly vetted, that there would be a record somehow that they did have a propensity to drive drunk, or they did have a record of violent crimes. And to bring them into America is counter to the whole philosophy of immigration, which is to strengthen our country. I want to mention one other thing too. There is talk. It's great stuff, and especially in our litigious society, is that if you do have a sanctuary jurisdiction or municipality, and they do knowingly, obstruct ICE and lit someone who clearly is a violent criminal, maybe served their time, but still, instead of being deported, they're let out. If that person commits, a crime, damage, injury, or death, that municipality be held liable
That's
for
a good
that.
idea.
I think it's fair.
It is. This is the fastest 30 minutes in Talk TV.
Yeah.
And we do appreciate you coming here.
I appreciate being invited.
We'd like to mention there was a very sad announcement the past few weeks in Newton, and that was the sudden demise, the sudden death of Mayor Seti Warren. Seti Warren was a true patriot. He was a great American. He cared deeply for our community. He was a unifier. He would bring people together, Republicans and Democrats alike. He went out of his way to embrace Republicans. He had us, he assigned to us various tasks around Newton that he knew we would do, such as care packs for soldiers. He would always come to our events. And then when he went to the Kennedy School of Government, he continued that trend by welcoming Republicans to the Kennedy School when his more liberal followers demurred and wouldn't want them to come in. But Seti, again, was a unifier, and I was so glad to have seen him last summer when I ran into him in Cambridge. And he will be missed, but more importantly, he will be remembered. The Newton 9/11 Memorial was in large part due to his approval and his shepherding that. And we are very grateful that we had him for the time that we did for 8 years. And our condolences to his family and to the thousands of people who did show up to his wake. And there's not much more I can say about that except that, we miss you, Seti, and God bless you. And we thank you again, Henry, for
All right.
coming tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.